That's my dad.
Hey, Vsauce! Ryan here, and today we're talking about the changing face of Canada.
Ayer. Enough of that nonsense. Now, if you were thinking of moving to Canada in the 1800s, what would encourage you or discourage you? After the War of 1812, many changes happened in Canada, including political changes, legal changes, and economic changes. After that, many immigrants settled in Canada for a better life. After the War of 1812, many soldiers were given land grants. Now, the rule was they had to clear this land within a year and they could keep it. But if they didn't, it was taken away. The black soldiers were also given this opportunity, but because they were black, they didn't get it. Now, after a while of discrimination, they got their land. One black soldier in particular, Richard Pierpoint, he was an accomplished soldier. And when he was going to receive his land grant, the only thing he wanted to do was go back to his home in Senegal, Africa. But his general denied his request. So, Richard lived in his land in Upper Canada, and he helped many black slaves escape the United States to Canada. Darkness. Now think about black.
Anyways! You see, after the War of 1812, from 1815 to 1840, there were thousands and thousands of people moving to Canada, where it be poor people or soldiers. And from the time between 1815 and 1840, Canada's population had grown from 100,000 to 400,000. People were coming from everywhere in Europe, including England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. In Britain, there was an increasing problem of overcrowding and poverty. And jobs in the cities were degrading due to the Industrial Revolution making way for machines that could do jobs that required manual labor. The British government had seen Canada as a way to get rid of poverty and overcrowding, while its citizens saw it as a way to get ahead socially and economically. The British immigrants had to travel the Atlantic by timber ships, provide financial aid and land for the immigrants heading to Canada. But it stopped by the 1820s, which meant most of the immigrants had decided to pay for themselves. The fee was expensive, and it also meant that thousands of people had to traverse the Atlantic in ships with bad conditions. The trip would take up to 2 months with up to 250 people boarding the ships. 1 in every 28 people would die of disease due to the poor living conditions, the scarce food, and the scarce amounts of water. The population uprising in Canada meant that less than half of Montreal's population wasn't Canadians. This was because Quebec was the most popular landing destination for immigrant ships, but since Montreal was becoming overpopulated, most immigrants had decided to take the Rideau Canal to Upper Canada. The problem was the British government had promised to make this trip free and to provide them with free land, but they didn't hold on to the end of their deal. In 1832, cholera had caused a widespread amounts of panic, and by the end of 1832, 7,500 people had died. And at the end of 1870, they finally found that the cause of the problem was immigrants coming to Canada and poor food and water supplies. The revolution had came to Canada from British immigrants bringing over stuff from the Industrial Revolution. This was shown in the establishing of the Bank of Montreal in 1817 and the building of the St. Lawrence Railroad connecting Canada and America. This also meant that there were people who were looking for jobs, most often the immigrants being the poorest, who were usually coming from Scotland or Ireland. And although the British were also coming to Canada, the rich ones were seeking out hiring people from immigrating countries that were trying to start a new life. This was true the first First Nations were outnumbered by settlers by large numbers. And the settlers would also abuse the women, the children, and they would take away their furs and other things that they valued. It had got to the point where some ministers of the First Nations had decided to translate Bible hymns and verses into Ojibwe, which was their official language. This paved the way for Canada to become the country that it is now. Canada is now a diverse country with many immigrants and is known for its heritage and diversity. I think I broke my ankles. I need to go to the doctor or maybe the hospital. I think I should just go to the ER. Do you think I'm gonna start throwing up blood?
So, two rival companies, the Hudson's Bay and Northwest companies, rivalry led to physical conflict in the West. The West was home to many groups, such as the indigenous people, fur traders, and some Europeans. Some of the indigenous groups were the Saulteaux and Métis. All these people lived in the Red River area near present-day Winnipeg, Manitoba. Many of the Métis people, and yes, that is how you say it, were fur traders, and they relied on the Red River for their business and also on the buffalo hunt for their livelihood and food. They also used the buffalo's fur to sell. The Métis also supplied the Northwest Company with buffalo meat and valuable pemmican. Hudson's Bay Company also gave a part of Rupert's Land to a Scottish man named Lord Selkirk. Lord Selkirk was a Scottish noble and shareholder of the Hudson's Bay Company. Lord Selkirk wanted to establish a farming settlement for those people who are losing farmland in Scotland. The Hudson's Bay Company gave him a big land grant of Rupert's Land so that he could fulfill this mission. This part of Rupert's Land became the Red River Settlement. Also, the Hudson's Bay Company was friends, or allies, I should say, with the Saulteaux. The Saulteaux chief, Penguis, signed a contract with the Hudson's Bay Company that these Scottish people would not build on their land. Selkirk hoped that this land, known as the Red River area, would stop conflict in the West, but it actually created more through the Saulteaux and other indigenous people getting mad at these Europeans in the Hudson's Bay Company and Northwest companies. The competition intensified between Northwest Company and Hudson's Bay Company because both companies moved west to find better trades, sales, and trade ease. The Saulteaux eventually attacked 21 of the Hudson's Bay Company workers, resulting in 20 of them dying. This was the last straw for Cuthbert Grant, a leader of the Red River Settlement who wanted to stop the food poverty within the Red River Settlement. Whiteness! So you see, the thing about white people, send the doctors!
As more immigrants came to Canada, social tensions were caused by racism, prejudice, and different religions. In Canada, there's a diverse selection between religion. And so two men named John Strachan and Egerton Ryerson. They were both rivals. A priest to teach young men how to become gentlemen, and the other one became a Methodist and traveled around Yonge Street in New York City. From 1841 to 1858, Irish families had to leave to escape death. Irish families came to Canada in coffin ships, and when they arrived, some people were nice and helped them, and others weren't. Slavery was abolished. They were still being discriminated against. So, they had to go through hard conditions to get there. The government started to see that poverty was becoming an issue, so then they started putting the poor people into jail. But relief was provided by charities and religious groups.
Thanks for watching our presentation, everybody.
Thanks for watching our presentation on the changing face of Canada.
Now, Oro Township was one of the many, many black people.
Oh, yours have layers. Oh my God.
Oh no! People were sent to jail. What a relief.
You short freaking troll!